Mr. President, just on a separate issue.
No.
I apologize.
Mr. President, can you say why you're suing John Bolton to prevent publishing his book?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to ask the Attorney General, but I will say if he's doing a book, I think it's totally inappropriate that he does a book. I think a guy, I gave him a break. He couldn't get Senate confirmed. He was never Senate confirmed the first time. I don't think he's supposed to even be calling himself an ambassador because he couldn't get Senate confirmed. He got in through a little trick, and he was there for a fairly short period of time. I put him here because he couldn't get Senate confirmed. This was a non-Senate confirmed position, as you know. He stayed for a short while, and I felt that it was not appropriate that he stay any longer. I wasn't impressed. And somebody said he went out and wrote a book. If he wrote a book, I can't imagine that he can, because that's highly classified information. Even conversations with me, they're highly classified. I told that to the Attorney General before. I will consider every conversation with me as president highly classified. So that would mean that if he wrote a book, and if the book gets out, he's broken the law. And I would think that he would have criminal problems. I hope so. Otherwise, I mean, they put a sailor in jail because he sent a photograph of his bed and an engine of an old submarine. And if this guy's writing things about conversations or about anything, and maybe he's not telling the truth. He's been known not to tell the truth a lot. So we'll have to see what the book is all about. But, you know, a lot of people are upset with him for writing a book. A lot of people are very angry with him for writing a book. But it's up to the Attorney General. Bill, do you have anything to say about it?
Well, people who come to work in the government and have access to sensitive information generally sign an agreement that says that when they leave government, if they write something that draws on or might reflect some of the information they've had access to, they have to go through a clearance process before they can publish the book. And we don't believe that Bolton went through that process, hasn't completed the process, and therefore is in violation of that agreement.
So what is the DOJ doing?
And that's criminal liability, by the way, you're talking about. You're not talking about like he's got to return $3 that he made on a book. That's called criminal liability. That's a big thing. You know, Hillary Clinton, she deleted 33,000 emails. And if we ever found out what those emails say, she would have had a liability. That's what you have. You have liability.
Could the Attorney General tell us what the DOJ is doing in terms of the Bolton book?
Well, there are a number of things, but the thing that is front and center right now is trying to get him to complete the process, go through the process, and make the necessary deletions of classified information.
But the book has been published.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it's been published. It's just not released yet.
Well, it's being printed. It's being printed.
Hasn't
According to sources, it's being printed. It hasn't been released.
So are you going to court to try to stop it?
Well, I said what we were doing was try to get him to complete the clearance process that's required.
His lawyer says that he thought that they had completed the process. Were there changes after that first iteration?
Well, he hasn't completed the process.
He never completed the process. He knew that.
This is unprecedented, really, because I don't know of any book that's been published so quickly while, the office holders are still in government, and it's about very current events and current leaders and current discussions and current policy issues, which many of which are inherently classified.
Have you read the book, sir?
I have not read it. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. But he knows, and he was advised not to write it, and he was advised very strongly not to write it until it's cleared. And he couldn't wait. And we'll see what happens. But I think he's got, personally, I would imagine he has, when you do classified, that to me is a very strong criminal problem. And he knows he's got classified information. Any conversation with me is classified. Then it becomes even worse if he lies about the conversation, which I understand he might have in some cases. So we'll see what happens. They're in court, or they'll soon be in court, but he understands he did not complete a process or anywhere near complete a process.
Mr. President, on Seattle, you said last week on Seattle that if the mayor of Seattle, the governor of Washington, didn't take steps to end the occupation of the Capitol Hill neighborhood, you would step in and you would do something. 100%. They still haven't ended it. They're negotiating. Are you considering taking action?
You know, they're negotiating garbage removal. Then they go, these people have taken over a vast part, a major part, a very good part of a place called Seattle. Seattle's big stuff. That's a major city. And we have a governor who's a stiff, and we have a mayor who said, oh, this is going to be a love fest. And by the way, these are violent people that took it over. These are not people that are nice people. I saw on your network today, John. I saw what went on with the hitting and the punching and the beating and all the other things going on in Seattle. And you have a governor that doesn't do a damn thing about it. And you have a mayor that doesn't know she's alive. She's talking about it's going to be a love fest this summer. Now, if they don't do the job, I'll do the job. And I've already spoken to the Attorney General about it. But if they don't do the job, we will do the job.
What can you do?
About 10 different things, any one of which will solve the problem quickly.
Can we go through a whole list or a partial list?
We don't have to go through any list. We can do a lot of things.
Mr. President.
I think it's incredible also that the radical left press doesn't cover it. They're acting like nothing happened. You turn on the news, you look at the news, you don't even see stories about it. If the right ever took over a city, conservative Republicans took over a city, it would be the biggest story in history. You can't even find stories about Seattle. It's incredible.
How much longer?
They've taken over. We'll see. I tell you what, the American public is very angered by that. Seattle is a major, important city, and the Democrats, I guess you say radical left, but it's not even radical left. It's just Democrat. Where we have our problem are Democrat-run cities. If you look at Minneapolis, if you look at other cities that have had trouble, they're Democrat in virtually every case that I can think of. I can't think of one other case. These are Democrat-run cities. Minneapolis, where the police are told to run for your lives. Don't do anything. And if I didn't get involved and send in the National Guard, and it was at my insistence that they did that, and as soon as I did that, everything stopped in Minneapolis 4 days, 5 days later.
Is there a timeline that you're thinking here,
Yeah,
Seattle?
but there's no timeline. We're watching it very closely. These are violent people that are dealing violently, and I think what I'd like to see before we do something, I'd like to see the press get in and cover it, because it's not that they're covering it badly, they're hardly covering it all. Think of this. A group, Antifa and others, radical lefts, they went into a major U.S. city, Seattle, and they took over a big percentage of that city, and the press doesn't want to cover it. And we have a mayor who's scared stiff. She doesn't know what's happening. We have a governor that's one of the most overrated politicians in the country. He just ran for president. He got less than 1%. He actually probably, I would have said less than 0, but I'm not sure that's possible. He got nothing. He got no votes, nothing. And the whole thing, the guy was out there fighting. At the end, he got 0, right? 0. So he failed. And now he goes back, and they take over a city, and he doesn't say anything about it. Worse, he said he didn't hear it. A day later, he said, I didn't hear anything about it. They took over a city, Seattle, and he said, I didn't hear anything about it. So look, the governor has to call out the troops, do what he has to do, has to call out the National Guard, has to do something. Because, you know, the problem with what happened in Seattle is it spreads. And all of a sudden, they'll say, let's do some other city, and let's do another one. And we're not going to let it happen. So timing-wise, hey, we're all set to go. We're watching the process. But the most amazing thing about the process is how the fake news media doesn't want to cover it. To me, that's the most amazing thing. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to the president here commenting on developments in Seattle, where a citizen group has effectively cordoned off the 6-7 block radius of Seattle.